Hi everyone, Amandine here, and for the past year you saw me interviewing startup founders on our bi-weekly live AMA, and if you stopped by on the channel recently, you may have noticed that I sometimes mention building my own startup for the first time. After supporting early stage startup founders for now 10 years, I embarked on a new adventure as a CEO and co-founder of Wild Matter. I believe my journey could help some aspiring founders. I'm just starting documenting our progress, challenges, and also small wins. Because I've been involved in the startup scene for now quite a few years, I've always been surrounded by very entrepreneurial mindset. And it's funny how people always ask me if I wanted to start my own startup or when I would do it. And I always had my answer ready, that it wasn't about wanting to start something, but it is all about finding the right people to do it with. I've known my co-founder for now 6 years, and pretty quickly I knew I wanted to be involved in whatever he wanted to do. But during the 6 years, we faced kind of timing issues. So when I had some time to start something, he didn't. And when he did, well, I was already engaged in some other project. But I have no regrets or wish to have done it earlier, because during this time, we both grew a lot, expanded our network and knowledge. And we spent lots of time brainstorming ideas until one really got stuck into our minds. More than asking about how we came across the idea, I am actually often asked about how I knew it was the idea I wanted to pursue. My co-founder and I used to spend quite some time together discussing the news, talking about the startup ecosystem, tech application, business models, and our brainstorming session quite often looked like this. We have an after-lunch coffee together, him passionately sharing his thoughts and exciting ideas, and me vigorously diving into the details, pinpointing any red flag and challenging the idea viability, until we found an idea I couldn't easily debunk. A couple of months after, we were still talking about it, doing additional researches, of course, answering some of our initial assumptions, and evaluating if it could actually work and if this project could be exciting enough for the both of us to take the leap. If you listen to my recent podcast with Dan Parry, Everyday Startups, or the follow-up blog post they recently shared, where I share some thoughts on the pros and cons of building your startup in stealth, then you know that we have been keeping a pretty low profile in the past few months, and we just started associating our personal LinkedIn profile to the company page, or adding the company Twitter handle to our personal Twitter bio. But you'll also note that our website is still not live. So why the secrecy? Are we still in stealth? Well, let's say that we are slowly getting out. We are still pre-product, so we are not going to start being super active on Twitter, creating content like crazy and massively reaching out to our target audience right now. But as mentioned in the podcast and interview, we've been doing technical presentation, we took part in various podcasts and live events, and I've also been talking to a bunch of investors. So let's say we recently reached a point where it didn't make sense anymore to not link our social media to what we do. I incorporated the company in December. By the end of February, my co-founder and I were both working full-time on the project, and just a few weeks after, London went into lockdown. Like me, you've probably read many articles saying that it's actually not a bad time to start your own business. To be honest, I've seen many founders being impacted by the situation, founders who had to change their product launch at the last minute or rethink their entire business model and approach. I think we are quite lucky. When London went into lockdown, we were expecting it, looking at what was going on in other countries in Europe. But also, we were already planning on spending the next couple of months in some kind of bubble, just keeping our focus on building our core technology. As an avid networker, constantly going to startup events in London, it has slightly changed what my week looked like, but I love being flexible, able to work from anywhere, and I've been working remotely for quite a few years now. So I simply had to trade networking events, coffee catch-ups, and summer parties, and demo days also, for Zoom, Google Meet, or whereby video calls. A few things I learned, first mistakes and other tips. The first time you talk about your idea, it is terrifying. Even if you know in advance that it's going to be tough. It's been now 10 years since I have been around early stage startup founders. And so I knew that it was super important to start talking about our idea and our approach as soon as possible and actively listen to the first questions, feedback, and what people really get out of it. But even if I knew what to expect, it was still a big deal to actually do it. Of course, a lot has changed since the first time I tried to put words on what we do and our visions. But now it's more refined and our roadmap also in plan, so I have no doubt it will continue to evolve over time, especially as we shape our communication to our users. Everyone makes mistakes and I have made some. I will surely make more in the future. A good friend of mine used to say that everyone makes mistakes, so better make them fast and learn from it as early as possible. It's been only 6 months now, so maybe in a couple of months I'll tell you about other mistakes I've made that I don't know about yet. One thing I did was to onboard an intern for a 6-week internship program in partnership with a London-based university. On paper, the idea was good. The intern was paid through a government scheme and we had a fresh pair of eyes looking at our company to help us build and design our first website. The intern we were assigned was very nice. She was volunteer and I'm sure she's a great front-end developer and will be in the future. But from the first week, we both realized that there were a huge gap between what we really needed and what she could do. And it ended up being kind of a nonsense for her and for us. But thankfully, it only wasted my time. It didn't affect our overall progress, and my co-founder wasn't involved in it at all, so he could remain focused on the core tech. As you may know, we are currently bootstrapping, and we are trying to bootstrap for as long as we can, and we'll be looking to raise our first funding round toward the end of the year. When I explain the reason behind that, everyone says it totally makes sense, but the hard part is actually to stick with our choice on a daily basis. When you read about startup raising large amount of money for projects that don't necessarily require lots of resources, it makes you question your plans. Should I also be raising earlier? For sure, I could use an additional pair of hands or two. How far can we realistically get with just the two of us? Bootstrapping a deep tech startup is extremely hard, and being able to hire a few people will definitely help us a lot. But every time my co-founder and I talk about the pros and cons, we always come to the same conclusions. Let's stick to our plan, but also start getting ready for our upcoming fundraising. Something I've tried to do to extend our personal runway and potentially get extra cash to pay for freelance help was to work on the side, especially as we're still working on the core technology, so we don't necessarily need me to be full-time. But I have to say, after I lost my full-time role at a startup just before London went into lockdown, I struggled to find any paid gigs or part-time roles that pay decently and are okay with me being a founder. So here I am, de facto full-time founder, and proud of it. We always give this advice and rules to follow. You need to talk to X number of users before building anything, or start by creating a pitch deck with Y numbers of slides, validate your idea with X, Y, and Z. These are good advice, but sometimes I think you need to do what makes the most sense to you and your company. At first, it kind of frustrated me not to follow every single rules. For example, I know I should administrate this study I prepared weeks ago to gaming forums and chat groups. It's ready, but since we're still working on the core tech, it wouldn't necessarily change anything for us to have these answers now or in a month, when we'll have more visibility on our cost and a public website available people can look up. So yes, maybe we should have tried to validate our idea first with a large study, but instead, we've been talking to a small crowd of people who immediately made further introductions and constructive feedback. Also, they all asked to be added to our closed beta as soon as it's available, so it's extremely encouraging. I'd also add that by waiting a little bit longer, we will be able to make really the most of this study, getting more useful answers answers, building a waiting list, and at the same time, testing the engagement of the different communities and channels to feed the information back to our communication strategy, which will save us money and time on our paid marketing later on. Anyone who's been working with early stage startups know that you have to wear many hats. I'm the CEO, and so depending on the day, I can also be the COO, the CFO, CMO, accountant, web designer, or product manager. Now the big question is how you manage those priorities, how you spend your time, and when to know when you actually need some external help. To be honest, I haven't really figured this out yet because I didn't need to, as I'm right now doing lots of preparational work, planning ahead, our launch strategy, future funding plans, communication approach, product map until we are ready to give a big push. This is something I will for sure put more thought on as soon as we are ready for the next step. Also, having so many hats is a good way to quickly understand what I like to do versus what I am good at, what I want to externalize as soon as possible, what I clearly need help with, and what I think I can do but actually can't do well. One of the key roles of the CEO is also to make sure that the team is strong and doing well. Well, the team right now is just composed by the two of us, my co-founder and I, so looking after my team means making sure my co-founder is okay, he has everything he needs, and is not wasting time on unnecessary tasks. Someday I wish I could be of more help to him, be more technical, but at the same time, our team wouldn't be as balanced as it is now if it was the case. This also means that now my best feeling ever moment in the week is when my co-founder tells me how excited he is about his latest progress, or when he asks me to have a look at his screen. I have to say, most of the time, I need some time to understand what he wants me to look at. But anyway, when he does this, I know it's pretty exciting and pretty cool. One last thing I want to touch on in this video is imposter syndrome and FOMO. Yes, imposter syndrome is real, and it's even worse when you are your own boss and you have no one to be impressed or to be happy with your work. For now, I have been kind of compensating by dedicating some time every week to learn new things on AI, read some esports news, and share what I've learned over the years with the startup scene. But let's be honest, the most difficult part is consistency. I'd also add FOMO to the imposter syndrome, but it's not really fear of missing out. It's more a fear of missing something that I'm supposed to do, such as an important step that I don't know. I've also been reading and following many founders on social media, and well, I'm always happy to read about growing funding round closed and big milestones reached. It also gives me a bit of anxiety as I compare our progress with theirs. Do I know it's ridiculous? Yes, of course I do. We're only 6 months in. We're building an AI startup with no external funding yet. But I never said this feeling was justified or makes any sense. You know, in the past, I had the opportunity to put myself in the shoes of founders I worked with. Early employees, investors, and mentors, but starting a startup of your own is quite different. Along the line of having only one opportunity to make a first good impression, I am very much enjoying every day, good and bad days, knowing that we have only one chance in a lifetime to go through the first few months of our very first startup. I try to share more about our progress and challenges in the coming months, but if anyone wants to chat, you can always reach out to me on Twitter, on LinkedIn, you can join my Discord server, or stop by an upcoming live AMA that I host every 2 weeks on Saturday morning. The focus is always on my guest, but I try to stay around after the interview to chat with viewers and discuss your own project and progresses. Huge thanks everyone for watching this video, I hope to see you around very soon.